Everything done. गुड मॉर्निंग सॉरी गुड आफ्टरनून फ्रेंड। आप सबका स्वागत है। अभी 1:30 बज रहा है। तो जैसा कि मैंने कमिट किया था कि मैं सेशन 7 PM पर लूँगा, बट आज एक वर्कशॉप है, सो दैट मैं अटेंड नहीं कर पाऊँगा 7 PM का सेशन शाम वाला। तो इसलिए आज मैं दोपहर में ही वीडियो बना रहा हूँ। उसके लिए मैं माफ़ी चाहता हूँ। और कल जो वीडियो जो बीच में स्टक हो गई थी, फिर कट हो गई थी, और आपने देखा भी होगा कि वीडियो हाफ ही है, तो उसका एक कारण था कि कल डाटा एग्ज़ॉस्ट हो गया था पूरा, और मुझे पता भी नहीं चला कि मेरा डाटा खत्म हो गया, और हाई स्पीड इंटरनेट कनेक्टिविटी के कारण मैं पूरा सेशन नहीं ले पाया। लेकिन मुझे ज़रा भी अफ़सोस नहीं है, क्योंकि जो मैं कल आर्टिकल डिस्कस करने वाला था, उसी से रिलेटेड आज एक बार फिर द हिंदू में आर्टिकल आ गया है, तो उसी को हम और ऐड करके थोड़ा अच्छा से हम उसको डिस्कस करेंगे और काफ़ी चीज़ें सीखेंगे। तो ये जो आर्टिकल आज का है, वो अगेन द हिंदू में आया है, और एक एमिनेंट पर्सनालिटी लिखे हैं आज भी, सुदर्शनम पदम, जो कि एक पॉलिटिकल साइंटिस्ट हैं, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हैदराबाद में लेक्चरर भी हैं, प्रोफेसर हैं। और क्या है, इन चीज़ों को हम समझते हैं बेहतर ढंग से। तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं अपना सेशन। सो बिफोर मूविंग, आज का वर्ड ऑफ द डे हम डिस्कस करते हैं, और आज का वर्ड ऑफ द डे है इंटरप्रिटेशन। इंटरप्रिटेशन, INTERPRETATION। इंटरप्रिटेशन का मतलब होता है किसी भी चीज को, फॉर्म को हम कैसे उसको व्यक्त करते हैं, एक्सप्रेस करते हैं। सपोज दैट कि कोई रूल आया, तो उसको हम कैसे, रूल को हम आगे फॉरवर्ड करेंगे, ग्रास रूट लेवल पर इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे, पालन करेंगे। सो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं आज का सेशन। So the article is basically the new and dark interpretation of "Be the People." Okay, what it is mean? "Be the People" is the our first word of our preamble of constitutions. Okay, and this will be the define that what is the form of democracy in every democratic country. Suppose that in case of India, in our preamble, there is one thing like democracy, and in which we have three entity. First, judiciary, executive, and legislative, and all of these are having keep checks and balances on between each of them. And the separation of power is one thing, but checks and balances is important thing more than that. But what in case of we don't able to hold on the situations of checks and balances, and this will reflect in the recent past in India, when judiciary and legislative functionaries going to be in conflict. And this article also said about their situations in the 83rd conference of presiding officers, recently held on 23rd January, in which our Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar Sahab sir said that "be the people" means judiciary. Why? Just hold on. Because be the people means legislative. Sorry. Why? Because we, as a we only legislatives, are going to be chosen by the common people. People vote for us, and we are here to authorize the function, not judiciary or executives. And in the term of vice president, it is fine, but the intentions behind their word is very outrageous, impeccable. Why? Because if in hand of in the hand of any entity have absolute power, the power tend to corrupt, and it will corrupt absolutely. And it is said by Lord Acton. Who is Lord Acton? He is a famous political scientist of the Britain. Also, one important thing that I say that power must never be trusted without a check and balances. It means power without must not be trusted without checks and balances, and it is said by John Adam, who is the also a constitutions writer of USA. It means he again said that it defined the intentions of India current situations because Vice President led this speech several times in multiple forums. They reflect the situations of what happening in India between the judiciary and executive in case of be it in the case of anzac situations, appointment of different judges in the higher court and lower supreme court and high court. The Indian legislative want the absolute power to hold on these situations of the judiciary appointment related concern. But what if we compare in term of the other world? There is something different picture come in this matter. In case of USA, in case of United Kingdom, these two countries we have to consider now, and we have to compare those one. In India case, yeah, India currently have a separation of power with the checks and balances in between all executive, judiciary, and legislatures. All have regular checks and balances, questioning, terminatings. All are happening on the rational basis of the constitutional morality. But in term of USA, there is a thing said by the many Indian elite personnel that in USA, president appoint Supreme Court judges, but it is not totally true because after the appointment name considered by the US president, the name must be consented by the upper house of US parliament, that is known as senate. And senates are like a form of house in which oppositions party, ruling parties, all MP, and also speaker consent is needed for that. In case of this is the case of USA, and in case of United Kingdom, England, there is no written constitutions as we know, but there is a convention followed by the followed by the United Kingdom's authority. We take government like executive, legislative and judiciary, and under that conventions they follow rules and regulations and not try to breach the conventions, and have also a limited checks and balances in United Kingdom. In case of India, we take democracy as example. If we going in situation like harnessing the democratic structure of India through any means, it will be not a flourishing types of movement for India. Why? Because let understand my word. In India is a very booming country in term of democracy because the very rest of the country in the world have a democracy like India. In case of Indian subcontinent, we have a multiple countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar, Bhutan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Maldives. But what? Either in some cases, some countries have no democracy like China, Afghanistan for now. This is totally autocratic, authoritarian government regimes. And in some cases, like have a democracy, but volatility exists, not confirmations of the what happening in future, like in the case of Myanmar. In recent past, Bangladesh, we can say Maldives have a same region. What happening in Pakistan, we all know. Afghanistan, recent example we have. So don't be We have to be go over the thinking of the which party is in the parliament, because the that governments are the temporary, but the theorem and constitutional morality behind the democracy is permanent. So we have to preserve that, because that's are the idea of India and democracy, and we have to be spread throughout the world, and not restrict them through the absolute power. So these are the case, and we can say that in the recent example of the Indira Gandhi in 1975's, what happening in the emergency area era, when Gandhi destroyed all constitutional machineries through their absolute power. They uh, take some multiple amendment in constitutions for their desires. Mm, Even they takes an one type of amendment under 41 Constitution Amendment Act, and they provide a unconditional immunity to the governor, president, speakers, prime ministers, even for who are government for even one day. But the Supreme Court basic structure come into matter, and under which they struck down. So these are the things. And in ancient period also, we take that first time democracy, three functional: judiciary, executive, and legislative, comes in by the Aristotle, and they define the agency of government as separation of power through three means: a general assembly, public officials, and judiciary. In 18th century, Montesquieu, a French philosopher and political thinker, said that we have must be a separation of power, um, um, and a bird called trias politica. It is a French word, and under which we have to be checks and balances on this separative entity. So these are the some of the best philosophers' ideologies behind the separation of power. So we have to be preserve that and don't be dilute, and it is the true in natures, because for flourishing democracy, we have not absolute power in our hand, because as per the statement of the John Adams, that power must never be trusted without what? Without checks and balances. So we don't trust any power without checks and balances. And who takes this responsibility of checks and balances? Judiciary, executive, and legislative, in between them. So these are the crux of this article. सो आशा करता हूँ आपको अच्छा लगा होगा। ये आर्टिकल काफ़ी अच्छा आर्टिकल था, जो हमारे पॉलिटिकल थिंकिंग को बढ़ाता है, जो हमारे जीएस पेपर में हेल्प करेगा, मेंस पेपर में हेल्प करेगा डेफिनेटली, एंड ऑप्शनल पेपर में भी। सो थैंक यू टू लिसनिंग मी। ओके, बाय, मिलते हैं कल। जय हिंद।